Welcome. We're glad you found us and that you've joined us today. Whether you're watching us live or at some later date, welcome. We gather virtually for now as seekers of wisdom, lovers of life, hopers for a better tomorrow, and believers in the power of kindness and service. We each bring our uniqueness, our talents, and our resources to this community. We are better for your presence and hope you will stay a while.
Our opening hymn today is Calm Soul of All Things. It's number 88 in the Gray Hymnal. Calm soul of all things, make it mine to feel amid the city's jar that there abides a peace of thine. I did not make and cannot mar. No will to neither strive nor cry, the power to feel with others give. Come me more, nor let me die before I have begun to live. Come Sunday, oh come Sunday, that's the day. Lord, dear Lord above, God Almighty, God of love, oh, please look down and see my people through. I believe that God put sun and moon up in the sky. I don't mind the gray skies, 'cause they're just clouds passing by. Lord, dear Lord above,
The word affirm means to assert strongly, publicly, to offer support and encouragement. Our community affirmation does just that. Please join me in speaking these words. Love is our doctrine. Compassion is our way. Here we seek to create a joyful home for free religious exploration. Build a community of caring fellowship. Nurture the hopes and serve the needs of our world. Here at UUCS, we light 3 chalices. The first is for the members and friends of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Salem, Oregon. The second is for our partner church in Šiman-Falva, Transylvania, Romania. The third is for the future, our children and youth. Across the distance, we send our prayers, our wishes, our hopes and dreams through the web of life that binds us. May these flames kindle the love that is in our hearts, and may their light serve as a welcome to all who seek justice, kindness, and community. Please join me in singing the flame into life.
Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy.
Hello and welcome to the Time for All Ages portion of the service. The story I'm going to tell you today is called The Hugging Tree by Jill Neark. And I'm telling you this story today because just like the little tree in this story, many of the trees in our area suffered injuries and broken boughs from the ice storm we had here last weekend. But, as you will see, with a little help from us, humans, and their own inner power to hang in there, our trees will heal and grow even more mighty and beautiful again in time. There's also another reason I'm telling you this story today. It's kind of a preview for the virtual celebration we will be having as a congregation next Saturday night. You children are also invited to that, and I hope that you will want to attend. So without further ado, The Hugging Tree by Jill Neark. On a bleak and lonely rock by a vast and mighty sea grew a lonely little tree where no tree should ever be. How she got there no one knew. She sprouted stems and little leaves as any tiny seed will do. There's hardly any dirt for me, no forest breeze, no birds, no bees, but I will do the best I can to make this rock my home. Her tiny roots pushed night and day, and bit by bit the rock gave way. A smudge, an inch, a foot, then 2. She grew and grew and grew and grew. The ocean hugged the rocky shore. I like you near me, little tree. Let's keep each other company. Soft gold sunbeams kissed her crown, warm as honey pouring down. At night she raised her branches high to greet the moon up in the sky. I wax and wane, I ebb and flow, I cycle through from full to thin, and when I'm done, I start again. That's how life is, One summer noon, a pair of loons landed on her canopy. A pretty tree, a sparkling sea. Shall we make this place our home and raise our baby chicks right here? The little tree warmed up with pride. She spread her branches high and wide. I'll be your home, she replied, and can you tell me if you've seen the forest where my family grew? We built our nest in trees like you quite far from here, and so you blew many nights and many days. You blew on the wind, just like we do. They built their nest, they laid their eggs, and soon 2 baby chicks were born. Summer passed and autumn too, and the little tree turned red and gold. Then winter came, with howling winds and cutting cold that broke her boughs. The loons flew south, the sea all ice, the rock all snow. The moon was lost in thunder clouds. Mighty cliff, hold me tight, don't let me blow away. Little tree, with all my might, I'll hold you close night and day. Storms will come and storms will go. At last the sun melted the snow, but now the tree could not grow. The storm had torn her roots. The moon gazed down and softly said, sometimes we lose our way, but with some help we start again. That's how life is, you know. And soon a boy came running by, skipping stones into the sea, and when he saw the little tree, he stopped and stared. He touched the tiny leaves, he felt the ragged roots. He shook his head and said, I can bring you just what you need. I can help you, little tree. A tree can't hug a boy. It has no hands or arms, but it can hug you with its heart, and that is just as deep and warm. Every day the boy came back carrying a full backpack. From the pack he took a tin and poured out rich brown earth, and he packed the roots and tucked them in. He planted flowers around the tree and made a path for all to see. And now everyone will know that even on a granite cliff, a little tree can grow. And then he went to sleep and dreamed the things that boys dream of. Now every day new people stop to rest beneath the tree and dream the things we all dream of. To love, to share, to give, to dare, to grow just where we are. And to this very day they come. For on a splendid sunny rock, by a warm, bright blue sea, a great big hugging tree grows just where she was meant to be. Thanks be, and may all beings be happy. Please do consider joining us for the Children's Religious Education Time and Family Service being held live via Zoom on Sunday mornings at 9:45 a.m. or for the youth group meeting time on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Thank you.
Lately, it seems that we've been on the 2 steps forward, 1 step back plan. Light, heat, and connection were lost for many of you, and many others in our community are also without what they need. Indeed, there are some still living without any connection, any power or internet, though I've heard that almost all of it's restored, and hopefully it will all be restored soon. There are still many roads closed and travel is inhibited. So as we clean up after the recent ice storm, even getting supplies to those who need help is a challenge. It's sometimes hard to know how you can help. If you have a chainsaw, that's great, but for the rest of us, may I suggest trying to be a little more patient, to offer a smile and a kind word. Often that can make all the difference. I have seen some amazing acts of kindness in the wake of this storm. Last week, I saw a young man up on a roof with a chainsaw helping his elderly neighbor to remove the tree branches from his house. I saw electrical workers all around in high cherry pickers in the rain working to restore power and internet. I saw a young lady run out of her apartment and stop traffic on State Street right in front of me because a downed wire had started a fire on the side of the road, and she didn't want anybody to get hurt. I am so grateful for these everyday heroes. Blessings to all those whose everyday acts of kindness restore our faith in each other. You can submit your joys and concerns to our website. Follow the cues on the slide you're seeing at uusalem.org.
Our pastoral hymn today is Every Night and Every Morn. It's number 17 in the gray hymnal.
Every night and every morn, some to misery are born. Every morn and every night, some are born to sweet delight. Joy and woe are woven fine, clothing for the soul divine. Under every grief and pine runs a joy with silk and twine. It is right, it should be so. We were made for joy and woe. And when this we rightly know, safely through the world we go.
What are the odds that you came into existence here on this little blue planet? I've never been much good at math, but even I was amazed at what I learned when I first looked into this. First, consider that there are currently 7.3 billion people on this planet. That's 73 with 8 zeros behind it. Only one of them is you. Let's start at your beginning. Your mom and dad had to meet. Remember, they had billions and billions of people to choose from. Yet somehow they found each other. They had to decide to get to know each other and produce a child. Now, there's more than just math involved here. Biology brings its own challenges. Out of the 100,000 or so eggs that a woman produces in her lifetime, and the approximately 12 trillion sperm each man produces, the exact ones had to join to become you. It turns out that the odds of you being you and not your brother or your sister is about 1 in 400 quadrillion. That's 4 with 15 zeros behind it. Now, remember, these same challenges, adjusted for the number of beings and other factors, apply all the way back through your ancestry. The chances of your mom and dad existing, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, and back for the estimated 150,000 generations are just as unbelievably small. We also need to take into account the odds that evolutionarily, those early one-celled life forms even evolved to become mammals and then humans. Oh, and remember that your ancestors had to be the survivors whenever there were accidents, disasters, disease, famine, flood, war, or genocide. They had to make it through. So, back to the original question. What is the chance that the exact bits of stardust came together to make the atoms that became the one and only you? One number seems to be the most common that I found, although many sites I checked said the odds are probably even less. The most common estimate is 10 to the 2,685,000th power. That's 10 followed by 2,685,000 zeros. Too many to put on a slide to show you. Basically, what it boils down to is your odds of existing are 0. Yet, here you are. You, the one and only, unique and wonderful you. Now, perhaps it's time you started treating yourself like the miracle that you are.
Love your neighbor as yourself. According to the Gospels, Jesus said this as half of how he would summarize the religious law, the other half being to love God with all your heart, etc. Love your neighbor as yourself. Religious traditions all over the world have variations on that theme. We are admonished to do unto others as we would have them do unto us, and to refrain from doing unto others what we don't want done to us. The underlying idea is certainly a sound one. Our own experience we know directly and vividly. The value of avoiding our own pain is obvious. Likewise, the value of our own pleasure and happiness. The value of other people's experience, however, is less clear, less visceral. So if we are to become more empathic, more merciful, more generous toward others, a good strategy is to take what we know best, our own experience, and apply it to others. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. In Buddhist practice, heartfulness toward others is cultivated by calling up feelings of loving kindness, compassion, and generosity where it's easiest, and then generalizing it to other situations. Accordingly, the traditional Buddhist approach is to start with one's self. Get to feeling a nice, rich sense of kindness, compassion, and generosity toward yourself. And once you've got it to where it's not just words, but you're really feeling it in your heart, then direct it toward loved ones, and then toward neutral persons, and eventually, in advanced practice, even toward antagonists. That's the hardest case. The assumption is that loving kindness toward one's self is pretty much universal, so it's good to start there and work outward. I suspect that's true in Buddhist societies, but in our culture, the assumption that loving kindness toward oneself is easy to call up is a bit shaky. I very often hear people say, "I'm hardest on myself. I have an easier time forgiving others than I do forgiving myself." Here are 3 testimonies on that theme. First, from the Buddhist teacher Tara Brach. She says, "When I was in college, I went off to the mountains for a weekend of hiking with an older, wiser friend of 22. After we set up our tent, we sat by the stream, watching the water swirl around rocks and talking about our lives. At one point, she described how she was learning to be her own best friend. A huge wave of sadness came over me, and I broke down sobbing. I was the furthest thing from my own best friend. I was continually harassed by an inner judge who was merciless, relentless, and nitpicking, invisible but always on the job. I knew that I would never treat a friend the way I treated myself, without mercy or kindness. Second, George Valiant is a Harvard researcher who led a long-term study of a set of men. He followed them throughout their entire adult lives with an eye toward discerning what factors contribute to happiness. He speaks of one man in the study who was a doctor and a much-loved husband. On that man's 70th birthday, when he retired from the Faculty of Medicine, his wife got hold of his patient list and secretly wrote to many of his longest-running patients, "Would you write a letter of appreciation?" And back came 100 desperately loving letters, often with pictures attached. And she put them in a lovely presentation box and gave it to him. George Valiant interviewed that man 8 years later. The retired doctor pulled the box of letters down from a shelf and said, "George, I don't know what you're going to make of this." And he began to cry. But he continued and said, "But I have never read any of these." George Valiant remarks, "It's very hard for most of us to tolerate being loved." And a third testimony, again from Tara Brock. She says, "As a friend of mine put it, feeling that something is wrong with me is the invisible and toxic gas I'm always breathing. When we experience our lives through that lens, we are imprisoned in what I call the trance of unworthiness, unable to perceive the truth of who we really are. A student of mine told me about an experience. She had spent many hours sitting at the bedside of her dying mother, reading to her, holding her hand, and telling her over and over that she loved her. Most of the time, her mother remained unconscious. One morning, the mother opened her eyes and looked clearly and intently at her daughter. She whispered softly, "You know, all my life, I thought something was wrong with me," shaking her head slightly as if to say, "What a waste." And then she closed her eyes and drifted back into a coma, and a few hours later, she passed away. A lot of times, we are very harsh with ourselves, more harsh than we would be with a good friend or a loved one. A lot of times, we need to learn to be more merciful toward that person who is our very own self. We need to learn to stop berating ourselves, denigrating ourselves. In the words you speak, or perhaps in the privacy of your own mind, do you sometimes treat yourself unkindly, like, "Geez, that was stupid," or "What an idiot I am," or "What is my problem?" If a major point of spiritual life is to become more benevolent, and I think it is, then it makes sense to start where benevolence can be found in us and expand from there. Very often it is the case that we are more merciful more kind, more generous toward someone else than toward ourselves. Not toward everyone else, I notice. Few of us are that good to others or that mean to ourselves. The Buddha famously said, "Just as a mother would protect her own child even at the risk of her own life, even so cultivate a boundless heart toward all beings." The prime illustration he gave for cultivating this loving kindness, the one he apparently thought would be the most illuminating for his listeners, was the love of a mother, not for herself, but for her child. I think of the dying mother that Tara Brock mentioned. This dying woman comes up out of deep unconsciousness, a coma, at the moment just before her death, in order to say to her daughter, "All my life I thought something was wrong with me. What a waste." And you know what I hear in that? I hear a mother saying, "I want better for you, my child. I want better for you than what I allowed myself." Consider this story by Jim Hainan. I find it a haunting account of compassion bubbling up from wherever it is compassion bubbles up from. It's called "What Happened During the Ice Storm." Coincidentally, apropos our recent weather. One winter there was a freezing rain. Tree branches glistened like glass. Ice thickened on the windows until everything outside blurred. Farmers moved their livestock into the barns, and most animals were safe. But not the pheasants. Their eyes froze shut. Some farmers went ice skating down the gravel roads with clubs to harvest pheasants that sat helplessly in the roadside ditches. The boys went out into the freezing rain to find pheasants too. They saw dark spots along a fence. Pheasants, all right, 5 or 6 of them. The boys slid their feet along slowly, trying not to break the ice that covered the snow. They slid up close to the pheasants. The pheasants pulled their heads down between their wings. They couldn't tell how easy it was to see them huddled there. The boys stood still in the icy rain. Some of the pheasants lifted their heads and turned from side to side, but they were blindfolded with ice and didn't flush. The boys had not brought clubs or sacks or anything but themselves. They stood over the pheasants, turning their own heads, looking at each other, each expecting the other to do something. Pounce on a pheasant or yell bang. Things around them were shining and dripping with icy rain. The barbed wire, the fence posts. The ice was hardening on the boys' caps and coats. Soon they would be covered with ice too. Then one of the boys said, "Shh." He was taking off his coat, the thin layer of ice splintering in flakes as he pulled his arms from the sleeves. But the inside of the coat was dry and warm. He covered 2 of the crouching pheasants with his coat, rounding the back of it over them like a shell. The other boys did the same. They covered all the helpless pheasants, the small gray hens and the larger brown cocks. Now the boys felt the rain soaking through their shirts and freezing. They ran across the slippery fields, unsure of their footing, the ice clinging to their skins as they made their way toward the blurry lights of the house. Gets me. We are those boys, poised to do the casual, callous thing which others are doing, which seems normal. But there is a pausing on the threshold of the moment. There is a desire to go with the flow and do what others are doing, but also a reticence, a sorrow, a merciful impulse. And in that moment, which voice will break the impasse? What kind of episode will this be? A pounce? Or a gesture of mercy? And we are the pheasants, at the mercy of our own inner voice, hoping, perhaps dimly, for a little kindness. I remember years ago when I was serving as a hospital chaplain, I went to see a patient, a middle-aged man, who the nurses said had become despondent, deeply depressed. He'd recently been told that his illness had damaged his body in such a way that he would no longer be able to function sexually. And he was taking it very hard. When I came in to see him, he was slumped down in the bed. The flesh of his face was hanging off like a damp washcloth. It looked like he was trying to not exist. It seems that he was deeply dreading a visit later that morning from his grown son, whom he loved very much. Why the dread? Because he didn't want his son to see him like this, no longer a man. It weighed on him like a death sentence. After a while, I asked this man to imagine for a moment that it was his son who had suffered this loss, his son who was in the condition that he was in. What would he say to that young man? There was the faintest little flicker of light in his eyes when he began to entertain that idea. You could almost see the wheels slowly turning in his head as that scenario played out in his mind. And then he sat bolt upright, threw his legs over the edge of the bed. His eyes widened, and he leaned forward to me. He took my hand urgently and said, "Why, I tell him I love him, and he's no less of a man." And you can know the lesson of that was not lost as it applied to himself. There is probably someone whom we have loved with their flaws and failings. Someone toward whom we feel merciful, for whom we want better than what we typically allow ourselves. And from that, it is possible to begin to accept our own worthiness of love, to grant ourselves mercy and loving kindness. Maybe we should say, love yourself as your neighbor. Love yourself as you love your neighbor. The Buddhist teacher Stephen Levine said, "Truly, we have been waiting our whole lives to hear 'I love you' in our own voice." So I invite you now, if you're so inclined, to try a small practice of loving kindness meditation. First, just close your eyes and breathe in and out with gentle awareness. After all the talking, just let your mind become more calm. And see if there may come into your mind someone toward whom you naturally feel kindness, mercy, generosity. Someone who you just really wish them well without a lot of complication. It's just easy to feel kindly toward them. And it doesn't have to be someone you're particularly close to personally. And thinking of that person, I invite you to place a hand on your heart and say and think and feel, may you be healthy, happy, and peaceful. May you be healthy, happy, and peaceful. Still picturing this person? Let that feeling deepen and become quite strong. Dear one, may you be healthy, happy, and peaceful. And now turn that feeling toward yourself. May I be healthy, happy, and peaceful. May I be healthy, happy, and peaceful. And really mean it. Just as for another whom you wish well, even with their imperfections. Just so, wish also for yourself. May I be healthy. May I be happy. May I be peaceful.
May there be an offering to sustain and grow the life of this congregation and its many ministries. We know the funds that you contribute come from sacrifice and hard work. You're a generous people, and it doesn't go unnoticed. Our Share the Plate recipient for February is Marion Polk Food Share. Every month, more than 46,000 people, including 15,000 children, will access emergency food through Marion Polk Food Share Partner Network. Please join us in helping to feed our most vulnerable neighbors. Your generosity is greatly appreciated.
Skylark, have you anything to say to me? Won't you tell me where my love can be? Is there a meadow in the mist where someone's waiting to be kissed? Skylark, have you seen a valley green with spring, where my heart can go a journey over the shadow
Reverend Mark is going to light our social justice lantern. This lantern is a symbol of all the ways our members and friends of this congregation carry the light out into the community. For some reason, we've had some challenges with it lately. You know what we could do? We could just move one of the other lights over there as we extinguish our chalices. Because we're moving the light one way or the other, whether we're moving the actual light or the candle itself. So as we extinguish the flames of our chalices, let's remember that the warmth and light of their flames does burn in each of us until we meet again. And I do want to remind you that on Saturday, February 27th, we will be gathering in a Zoom webinar for our annual Celebration Sunday. Traditionally, we would fill Hanneman Hall and the sanctuary with tables, share good food and conversation and memories and goals for the coming year. This year, we invite you to bring your dinner or snack. And as our community gathers in the virtual space, join us as we make plans for the coming year. To learn how to join us, please check our website, uusalem.org. This will also be the kickoff for our new pledge drive, and you will get to view all the beautiful prayer flags made by our members. If you have interest in the women's retreat and making that into a women's group throughout the year, please contact me, and you have my email address up there. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Our closing hymn today is Just as Long as I Have Breath. It's number 6 in the gray hymnal.
Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. Though with pain I made my way, still with hope I meet each day. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to life. Just as long as vision lasts, I must answer yes to truth. In my dream and in my dark, always that elusive spark. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to truth. Just as long as my heart beats, I must answer yes to love. Disappointment pierced me through, still I kept on loving you. If they ask what I did best, tell them I said yes to love.
Please join your hands with those around you and your hearts with the entire community as we say our closing words together. May faith in the Spirit of life, hope for the community of earth, and love for the sacred in one another be ours now and in all the days to come.
Amen.